Everybody seeing 6 o'clock. I would like to open with a roll call to open this public meeting and to go into executive session for reason number 2. Bob Clark?
Yep.
Jen Blum?
Yes.
Courtney Brightman?
Yes.
Chris Lang? Here. Carolina Hernandez?
Yes.
Steve Sylvia?
Here.
John Burke? Here. All right, thank you, everyone. All right, seeing about 6:35, I would like to resume the open meeting. Since our roll call, I'd like it noted in the minutes that Will Sankowitz has joined the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. In addition to LakeCAM, is anyone recording the meeting? In the mask? Thank you. I'll invite you to please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Great. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the meeting on June 26th of this year. No, we do not have a packet tonight. Everyone.
Understood.
Can I make a motion to table it, since we
Yeah.
didn't receive a copy of the minutes?
Yep, I think that's fair.
I have a motion to table acceptance of minutes to our next meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any
Aye.
saying aye? Any opposed? Any abstained? Acceptance of minutes will be tabled until next meeting. Okay, FY 24-25 budget update.
Thank you.
Mr. Higgins?
As you have received the report that I had sent out prior to the meeting, we are, in terms of FY '24, we are continuing to analyze adjusting expenditures according to the correct locations. We're keeping a list of those adjustments to improve our accuracy and efficiency in the FY '25 budget. For example, payroll and teacher locations, to ensure that as we prepare for the teacher, we want to make sure we're as accurate as we can possibly be relative to payroll and teacher salaries to particular locations as we prepare for teacher contract and paraprofessional contract negotiations for FY '26. In terms of the FY '25 budget, this is an ongoing process of reviewing the FY '25 budget to look for and identify places where we can be more efficient. Unfunded items amounted to $801,299 from the budget shelves. This is slightly less than the original identified amount due to a lower student services administrative salary obligation and a reduction in the PD sub-salary line at Freetown-Lakeville Middle School. In addition to that, the custodial contract was finalized after the budget was voted, as we've discussed in previous meetings, and thus the difference needed to be accounted for through adjustments in the budget. There's identified where those unfunded budget line items in the table in the report that was given to you, and as I said, it amounts in total to $881,299. That's the combination of the custodial salary line. I'm sorry, the new custodial contract in addition to the unfunded items that were identified in the shelves. Those identified areas of reduction for transfer to address unfunded budget items include the additional $35,000 in the clerical salary line for central office, which was Originally proposed as an additional secretary position in central or in the region. That was $35,000. There's a reduction in the superintendent's salary line of $10,000, which will require an MOA. Technology, the software and hardware lines at ARHS were included twice in the original budget shell of approximately $19,000. The FES project, fiber project, the project costs came up less than expected, as well as the E-rate support. So therefore, there's $60,000 that's going to be moved over to cover. There is going to be a purchase of Chromebooks for Grace and for high school, for the intermediate school and for the high school. Those will be identified, and we made those purchases through ESSER 3 with remaining funds in ESSER 3, therefore allowing that money to be used to address the unfunded budget items. We found $12,000 in area of reduction within copiers within 3 locations, the central office, the high school, and the middle school, $4,000 each, a total of $12,000. Health insurance was over budgeted, as we have discussed prior, as a result of the percent increase coming in at a little over 4% and originally budgeted at 8%. So there would be the opportunity to transfer $360,000 from health insurance. There was an increase in the salary coaches in the ARHS. That increase was more than 38, but we'll be talking about that with the MOA agreement as well. So we are able to take $38,000 of that increase to address unfunded budget items. The electricity item for FES, there was a $20,000 identified as a place that could be used. Within FES, it appears that when looking at it historically, that there had been 2 or 3 years, or 2 years in 21 and 22, where the electricity had gone relatively high, higher than normal. And the budget had increased as a result, and it had not been decreased afterwards. And so for the last 2 or 3 years, it's maintained that higher level, and this is an opportunity to bring it down to where it should be so it can match historically. We were able to make some prepayments relative to outer district tuitions through FY24 funds, and then we have approximately through hiring practices, we'll have about $80,000 to be able to move from teacher salaries, from staff salaries, but it's primarily teacher salaries. That is still ongoing, as we still have a few hires to make, but we're monitoring that closely. There's a list of budget transfers identifying where those areas can then be used to address the unfunded budget items, which are outlined in the report. In addition to that, you'll see one line that it's an adjustments to account for the Appendix C MOA, and then school-to-school salary line adjustments to align with salary obligations. Those will be in a full detailed budget transfer report for you at the next meeting, but this will enable us to move and to make the necessary transfers so that we have a budget that we can work with, and then we'll give you the specific list that will need to be signed off on at the next meeting. That's the budget update.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Great job.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah. Ms. Brightman, go ahead.
Thank you. So I was looking at the list that you provided, and I was also comparing it to the preliminary list that we received at the beginning of June.
Yep.
And I noticed the preliminary list was $203,000 because we're still working on it, and now we got $884,000 here on this one. But not all of the items sort of matched up. For instance, the district vehicle or the Habib $24,000 cancellation of the remainder of the capital planning. Sure. But I didn't see it on here.
Sure, the Habib contract is actually in 24. There was no obligation in 25.
Okay.
So that wouldn't necessarily save us any money in this. Those are additional places for us these were combing through the budget numbers and using these. Those are additional places that we can look going forward as we prepare 26, as we look at what our obligations will be with teacher contract.
Any additional questions for Mr. Higgins?
Yeah, just a quick one, Jack. So I think, and rightly so, right? I think the community wants to know, like, how did we get here, right? And would you say that and I'm going to simplify this for my simple brain. Would you say that this was just, we got here due to a lack of maybe details within line items when the budget was being put together originally? And I'll continue that by saying, so like after the infamous meeting when Mr. Strauss sat down with both towns and had a great conversation around coming to a number that we had to be at for a district, walking out of that meeting, right, we should have known that we had to cut around $800,000 from the budget at that point, right? So there was no money that disappeared. This was due to a lack of kind of just paying attention to detail within specific line items as we were kind of going through the budget development process by a previous regime. Is that accurate?
Well, you're asking me to speculate on why a person made the decisions they made, but I'm going to do my best. So what I would suggest happened would be that there was a meeting that took place that identified what the budget could be, and then the interim director took that number and said, okay, I'm going to fit a budget around it, without necessarily assuming that the first budget that was going to go in front of the school committee was going to have all the details that I believe I remember hearing at a meeting, a statement made that there was still work to be done. They were going through tracking documents, and that there would be the decisions around how the money would be moved around would eventually be done by the district. That's, again, I'm speculating on putting together a couple of comments that I heard at meetings.
Yep. Yeah, and I think we all are speculating, right? Because it's hard to be in there and be in the room, be in the brain and the mind, right? But my last comment is just a thank you to you. Nobody's come into a position with a lot more on your plate than you have. And I think the committee certainly appreciates all the work you've done in getting to the bottom of this and formulating a really solid plan to get us through not only this upcoming budget season, but previous as well. So I just want to thank you publicly. I know how much work it was. I know you were doing this work prior to being in the seat, and already trying to set yourself up for success. So just a thank you there.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I will say that I don't think we're done.
Right. No,
I think there's quite a bit of work still left to do on this, and we will continue to report that out as we go forward in meetings.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is the memorandum of agreement that details the Appendix C of our current teacher's contract. It was presented to the committee at our last meeting, and we tabled the vote till this meeting to give people additional time to review it against what's present in the existing contract. Any discussion on this?
Jack,
No, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Jack, did you have anything you wanted to add to this?
I think it's important to just note what the net increase will be as a result of these changes. This is including there are not so much additions, but movement within the tiers. But there is some reduction of positions that have not been filled for several years. These are clubs or activities that just haven't, they've sort of become antiquated and they don't get activated each year. So it does, though, require a net increase of $11,523, which, as I mentioned, can be adjusted as a result of the budget line was already in this area relative to coaches' salaries, having additional funding in it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept this as written.
So moved.
Second.
Second, I believe this is a roll call vote. Bob Clark, Will Sankowitz,
Aye.
Jen Blum. Aye. Courtney Brightman,
Aye.
Crystal Lee,
Aye.
Carolina Hernandez.
Aye.
John Burke, aye.
Through the chair, if I can just put a little bow on this thing, and I'd be remiss to not say that I sat in a lot of those meetings, not all, but I know Superintendent Strauss was in those meetings with the teachers, and not many, I haven't been in many meetings that were as collaborative, as respectful, as productive has those meetings, so kudos there.
Great. Okay, we're on to our point in the meeting where we have public participation. Public participation shall be in accordance with our policies. Each speaker will be permitted a maximum of 3 minutes, during which time they can speak about topics within the scope of the responsibility of the school committee. At this time, I'd like to read to everybody what our public participation policy is. And I'll certainly take my portion of the responsibility for not doing a good job of enforcing this. Topics for discussion must be limited to those items listed on the school committee meeting agenda for that evening. Improper conduct and remarks will not be allowed. Defamatory or abusive remarks are always out of order. If a speaker persists in improper conduct or remarks, the chairperson may terminate that individual's privilege of address. All remarks will be addressed through the chairperson of the meeting. Speakers may offer such objective criticisms of the school operations and programs as concern them, but in public session, the committee will not hear personal complaints of school personnel nor against any member of the school community. Under most circumstances, administrative channels are the proper means for disposition of legitimate complaints involving staff members. Written comments longer than 3 minutes may be presented to the committee before or after the meeting for the committee's members' review and consideration at an appropriate time. I think public participation. Bob, go ahead. I'm
Through the
sorry.
chair, I've heard some criticisms about the committee not following some of the rules, and public participation is one of them. I've taken upon myself to bring my watch tonight. I think we should follow our own policy. 3 minutes, that's it. If it's longer than 3 minutes, present it in writing.
Okay.
And with your permission, Chair, I'll keep track of the time tonight.
I would appreciate that, Bob. Thank you. All right. I thank everybody. Is there anybody here for public participation tonight?
Good evening, Christopher Plonker,
Mr. Plonker.
Lakeville Finance Committee Chair. Question for the school committee through the chair, Mr. Burke. I'd like an update on the audit that was discussed at the last regional finance subcommittee. My understanding was the subcommittee was assigned as met, but I don't have any updates on it. If you could please give us an update on that, please.
Yes. Is there anyone at the table that could speak to Mr. Plonka's question?
Oh, I think Mr. Higgins probably could, right?
Well, you were,
No, Crystal is chair.
yeah. I'll comment too.
We met with whoever could meet with us via Zoom. It was
Brian Day.
Brian. Was Brian?
Brian Day.
No.
No, Brian wasn't there.
No, are you talking about the last regional finance committee meeting, or are
The
you
regional
talking about
finance
the
committee, or are you
Zoom?
talking about the Zoom meeting
That we had
that we
offline.
had?
No, not the Zoom meeting.
Okay, the regional finance committee. Yes, so is that the question, Chris? The regional,
Where the audit was discussed.
where the audit was discussed?
In this room, Bob Nunes was there.
And then a subcommittee met afterwards.
Right, the subcommittee met afterwards with the town.
Not the entire regional
No,
finance
not the
subcommittee.
entire committee.
It was you and I from
It
the
was
regional
just
finance.
Regional
sub.
Finance Committee, Alan, Jack, Bob Nunes, Todd.
Yes.
So it was the 5 of us to talk about their take on the audit, and also what we could do to maybe bring in some training for all of us as a district to help us understand budgets, to go to an outside company. And we just talked about that. That's all we were talking about, nothing really exciting.
And the regional finance committee as a whole has not met since then.
Right, we have not met since the previous meeting.
It was discussed, though, that an audit, as originally intended, was not necessary?
Well, that's according to Bob Nunes and Todd.
That's all I know.
Right. But also, there wasn't anybody from Freetown there to express their opinion, but it had already been voted, well, no,
I was
from
there
the
from
town.
Freetown.
From the town, I know you were there, from the town, office. Like Deb couldn't make it and their accountant couldn't make it because we wanted to have a meeting of just finding out what else could we do? What kind of training could we have come in? Because it's not something that the school committee, MASC could do. It would have to be an outside firm that we would have to hire to come in to work with, Jack, or work with all of us to hone our budgeting skills.
So I think the consensus on the call was that we would be looking to a consulting firm.
Yes.
To audit our budget policies and procedures and come up with reporting models and best practices.
Right.
Define the scope
No.
at a very, very high level.
Yes.
Well, yes and no, but it's more of, we were talking about the audit, but yet we branched off from there to talk about hiring an outside firm to help
Guide you, define the
Guide
scope. Okay.
divide
Or
the
narrow
scope,
it down.
but also
Okay.
to help us to figure out how to frame a budget.
Okay, so the consultant company would help you guide it, get you to the next step, when then you would go back and hire an external agency to conduct the audit.
Yes, but also someone to come in and help us with training
yeah, I understand.
on just like writing the
Sure.
budget for 2000, I don't know, 25.
Oh, so
and
that's
26.
separate from the audit?
Yes, that is
Okay,
separate from
okay.
the audit.
Understand, okay.
Completely separate. So we thought that that would be a good idea. So we could all get a handle on making a budget, looking at a budget, and just, my word of tonight seems to be transparency. So just have that so that we could all be on the same page and have everything clear to everyone.
Okay, so I get
Best
that,
practice.
training to help with the budget process
Yes.
for the school committee members, okay.
Yes.
So what are the next steps for the audit, though?
We will discuss that at the next FinCon subcommittee. I still haven't heard back from the select members of either town on their availability.
Yeah.
For the month of
Yeah, I know
August.
I'm aware you're trying to schedule that,
Yeah.
right? But I'm still confused, what came out of the working group?
The working group is hiring a consulting company.
Oh, that was their recommendation?
That was their recommendation.
Okay.
Bob and Todd will look into it, but I also wanted to get Freetown's take on it. And, the administrator wasn't there, Deb was on vacation, and I think his name was Todd. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Matt Parent.
I'm sorry, Matt Parent. Todd is Lakeville.
Okay,
To just get who they would recommend.
okay. So the next step is the regional finance subcommittee will meet again and determine.
Again,
Okay.
determine the scope of the audit,
Yep,
and then we're all gonna go from there.
determine the next steps for identifying the audit agency
Yes.
and timelines and so forth. And
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plonka.
To the chair, and Jack, maybe you're going to touch upon this in your director's report. Are you going to touch on the 2023 audit that was just completed by Lindsay
That's in the
Marini?
new business, yeah.
And that feedback? Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public participation? Okay, hearing none. Moving on to new business. Superintendent.
Hi, everybody. Happy summer. Before we get to the topic at hand, I want to update the school committee on a couple of things that we had talked about in the last month or two. We've hired a nurse for FMLS who comes with a wonderful plethora of experience, and we look forward to her arrival. She signed her contract, and we're excited about that. I would like to move forward with posting for a float nurse, as we discussed. It would be a district float nurse, and since it was discussed previously, I just wanted to make sure that there are no other questions about it. Jack and I, it's our responsibility to find the money for it. And we've had that conversation, but I did not want to move forward until the committee had an opportunity to at least discuss it. Question?
Do we have a lead nurse? Has that been decided?
Has a lead nurse been,
Right, is it gonna stay Joan?
yes.
Yes, okay.
Well, I can't say
You
that,
don't know?
actually.
Okay.
We have to interview 2 people. So
Okay.
I take that back.
Take it back. But that's fantastic. I am so happy to hear that that's on the table.
We've reconfigured the quote-unquote SEL program with the hiring of an adjustment counselor who will be .5 at the high school and .5 at FMLS, where, as Jack knows, they've been asking for more support in the guidance department. As the scope of the position at the high school becomes finalized, Kelly and Kaylin Desert, as principal, will provide the school committee with more information at the August meeting. We're excited about that.
That's fantastic.
That's not the online teacher, is it?
No.
No. Okay,
That's posted? No.
okay.
No. We will be bringing all new staff to the school committee to introduce names and faces in September. I don't think we've done that previously, and I would like to. I think it's important. Obviously, in correspondence out to the community, each principal will be sending out names and faces, but I'd like them to be able to meet all of you. We'll do that first part of the agenda so they can go home, but
Of course.
with school committee's approval, I'd like to start that moving forward.
Yeah, we have done that in the past, but it's sporadic.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
in
not
my
not
2 years here,
consistent.
we haven't done it. And then I want to wish all of our class of 2024 graduates the best of everything as they begin preparing for their next journey, whether leaving for school in a few weeks, which is hard to believe, or as they have begun their work employment. For those who are entering the military, we wish you all luck. We haven't forgotten you. One last piece of information, which is really exciting. I met with Chief Rose and Detective Medeiros. We will have a part-time SRO at FES this year. We are working together on a grant with the help of Deb Heavy, obviously, to fund this permanently so that there can be a full-time SRO. But for now, there will be a part-time. We have not determined schedule. We haven't determined any of that yet. It's always understand that unless there is a SRO who is only assigned to FES, that their schedule is going to float. If there's an emergency going on in town, they're pulled for that day to go take care of the emergency. That's the difference here, but we have started the process, so it's exciting news. Okay?
That's great.
Good.
With regard to the nurse, are we talking about an LPN or an RN?
The float nurse or the nurse we hired?
Either one.
Has to be an RN, I believe. I may be wrong on that, but I
believe
don't
you're
know.
correct also.
I believe it has to be an RN, yes.
Well, go ahead.
Yep, through the chair. Alan, that's great to hear about the part-time SRO at FES. In the future, is it probably going to be in the plans to hopefully provide the same for AES as well? Or has that,
So the question would become, so AES is taken care of through Val. The question's going to be, and I'm only going to give you my take. This is not a discussion I've had with anybody else or Chief Perkins, so please understand that.
Yep.
It is my hope we can have an SRO at AES, an SRO at FES, an SRO on campus to eventually become an SRO in every building. That would be my hope. I just don't know financially where we are. But at least if Val can only have to take care of the 3 schools, that's a little bit easier than having to take care also of AES.
Can I ask a question on that, Alan? My own misunderstanding of it, I'm sure. Where our existing SRO is part of the Lakeville department, is that role the same if there's a need at Freetown? Or currently would someone from Freetown PD report to FES?
No, Freetown would report to FES.
Okay.
That's the way it works now. And Detective Medeiros, used to be Sergeant Medeiros, he's been promoted, congratulations, would often, as part of his day rounds, would come through the school, walk through the school, go through the outside of the school. That would be part of his daily routine or every other day kind of routine. Everyone knows him, So, but he wasn't stationed in the building, and I think that's a little bit different.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How was it that the Freetown Elementary School was selected as the next spot?
So the grant was written by Chief Rose, Chief of Police in Freetown. He received it, and they have one school. So
Okay.
technically,
Yeah.
that's the way it would work, because the
Yeah.
Lakeville has to be here.
I just asked because the police station in Freetown and in Lakeville, across the street,
Right.
I mean, greater need, I would think, would be up here, but if that's the...
But it was
that's-
written.
That's the
It was
restrictions of the
written
grant,
by-
I understand.
Right, by Chief Rose.
I understand.
For Freetown. Any other questions on any of that? It's all good news, I think.
Absolutely.
It is, great.
Okay, business at hand. I'm going to ask the school committee, before I get into goals and all of that, to give me a few minutes to kind of talk about the last 2 years, if that's okay with everybody. The 2022, 2023, and 23-24 school years have been opportunities for us to continue to provide an outstanding educational program to our students. We are all very proud, and I am very proud to be the superintendent here. Due to the dedicated and inspiring work of our faculty, paraprofessionals, service providers, secretaries, nurses, counselors, food service, maintenance, and custodial staff, IT department, advisors, coaches, assistant principals, principals, and our directors of curriculum and student services, as well as director of finance and operations. Our student chronic absenteeism has dramatically improved. Student outcomes have grown. Parent groups, if not in size, in voice and responsiveness, have grown. Our service providers and counselors continue to support student needs. Our special education department has caught up with multiple years of being out of compliance with DESE. We've provided food on the weekends to battle food insecurity. Our educational offerings, including growth in STEM K through 12 and AP offerings, just to name a few, continue, while incredible classroom work is being done in the primary and middle levels in math and writing, and while excellence continues throughout all content areas. Students are being accepted into great post-secondary colleges and universities and are prepared for the workforce in ways they have not been before. Professional development has grown, a curriculum review process has been implemented, multiple safety measures have been implemented, building and technology improvements are flourishing throughout, student voice is now utilized, athletics and extracurriculars are flourishing, equity teams have been developed in each building, and our teachers and staff continue to do outstanding work. The sky is not falling. In fact, it is shining brightly. Certainly, there's work to be done, and we're excited to begin 24-25 as the leadership team met this week for our leadership retreat. Rather than dismissing the elephant in a room before even giving an overview of the evidence that you were sent, it's imperative that I discuss the budget and the business department, which understandably became a source of discomfort and is being scrutinized and revamped by our outstanding new Director of Finance and Operations, Jack Higgins. The 22-23 school year budget process was led by a talented Director of Finance, and the budget was positive and without contention, beyond the concern of the towns about the sustainability of an ever-increasing budget as we move forward. Yet, as is expected, it was also mentioned by the school committee, although not unanimously, to me, that we did not fight hard enough for more money from the towns. The 23-24 budget was led by an interim director, resulting in a plethora of difficulties. The lack of communication and attention to detail given to all stakeholders from that office, combined with my diagnosis of leukemia in July of 23, which compromised my abilities more and more each day and became difficult to manage from January to April, which is the heart of budget season, allowed for the multiple line item omissions to happen, which eventually were discovered. As you heard from the director's report tonight, that has been rectified. All of the protocols and procedures are being tightened up and will continue to be tightened up, and communication from Jack's office and my office to both towns will be constant. We will not be in this situation again. As I said at the school committee meeting, despite my health diagnosis, which sadly was reported by the Nemasket Reporter, and I do not mean, Anna, that I'm sad you reported it, just the information is sad. My diagnosis never goes into remission, and it has prevented me from doing so much previously and so much in my future, although I was here working far more than my doctors and my loved ones preferred. What happened with the budget falls on me, and I understand that. It will not happen again. In our 2 years, the budget passed in both towns, and we know we have a great deal of work to do to ensure we stay fiscally responsible to the towns while providing an outstanding educational experience for all of our students and families. Families move, stay, or return to here for many reasons, and the schools absolutely are one of those reasons, and we must continue to do our part to improve our programming. Yet there's so much great work that has happened in our district due to our teachers, parents, staff members, directors, and administrators. And it has been very disturbing to me that we have gotten away from what matters most, teaching and learning and what happens for our students. I'd like to go over some of the evidence of our significant growth in 2 years. I've always believed that any leadership position within a school, whether an assistant principal, team chair, director, principal, or superintendent, has a role similar to that of the orchestra leader. They may not play or write the music each day. Our teachers do that, although each leader knows how to do it. But rather, the leaders must ensure that the music remains harmonious, because when it does, the results are wonderful. And without question, our staff has done a remarkable job creating a harmonious melody that's resulted in some wonderful progress, knowing we have more to do and more students to support. At this point, I want to talk a little bit about goals, especially for our new people. These goals were presented to the school committee and approved in 2022. Professional learning goal, district and community communication. You have these, so I'm not going to just read them word for word because you already have seen them. I just want to go over them a little bit. Communication and engagement were identified as areas in need of focus during the recruitment and search process for a new superintendent. The visibility that my predecessor developed must be continued. I will reiterate, it is very difficult to be visible when I'm being told by my doctors don't even go to work. So I'm going to continue to harp on that, as I have heard, why wasn't I visible? Building trusting relationships with FLRSD families and key stakeholders through communication that's timely, responsive, collaborative, and inclusive is paramount. Building relationships with key stakeholders through visibility, regular meetings, and intentional opportunities for engagement. Effective, timely, and open communication will be promoted through the development of plans to operationalize communication protocols and processes within our schools and district-wide. There were various key actions, including things about the website, obviously ensuring that both the ever-changing needs of the district are combined with a fiscal responsibility to the towns, identify opportunities for listening sessions, attend and participate in multiple community events and meetings, as well as student programs, and to meet with various stakeholders such as CPAC, PTOs, first responders, booster groups, staff, students, unions, and leadership team, school committee, and town officials. I included benchmark evidence that you will have that you already approved. By June of 2023, the superintendent will have met with multiple stakeholder groups to discuss ways to improve communication as it pertains to general announcements, school and district success in all matters of importance. You will find much of that in the evidence that I sent to you. Obviously, there could be hundreds and hundreds, but obviously there's work to do. Whenever families are feeling as if they are not being communicated with, we have more work to do. And we're not in denial that everything is perfect. Second goal, to develop and grow the capacity of our leadership team, principals, assistant principals, and central office team, who will in turn grow the capacity of their staff, department, and team. We must retain, recruit, and hire quality staff. We must continue to build upon a culture of care and empowerment in order to retain our outstanding staff and ensure we develop an effective and transparent system to hire and onboard new hires. This will allow us to consistently and collaboratively provide a high-quality and challenging academic experience for every FLRSD student. Staff receiving meaningful feedback, detailed evaluations, begin to update job descriptions which have been which were outdated for many years, and we are beginning to do that, to streamline application process and determine best practices for FLRSD to recruit staff. We absolutely did that when, for example, the hiring of Jackie Francisco and the committee that we created It was a very, in using your term, Crystal, a very transparent and positive process. Continue to support the new mentor program, which Terry Fleming oversees and has done a fantastic job. Build a solid and transparent relationship with the union and meet bi-weekly, which we do. Our relationship with the union is fantastic, and I will tell you that is not true in every district in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Develop evaluation tools for all bargaining units that currently do not have one. Faculty and staff will receive job-relevant, differentiated professional development, and develop and grow the capacity of our leadership team. Final goal, student goal, if you all remember, we really talked about MCAS, and we decided to look at ELA proficiency scores, which had declined from 2019 to 2021. I understand because of the pandemic. We all understand that. That is not a blame in any way, shape, or form. The question was, how do we get back to where we were previously? We had seen decreases in grade 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3, ranging from 3% to 12% decrease. And so we looked at how do we improve those students that are partially meeting, and how do we move students who are not meeting to partially meeting, and MCAS scores are going to continue to show that. We talked about it where our data will reflect a 3 to 5% increase on formative benchmark assessments, as well as in not only spring assessment for iReady at the lower levels, but in MCAS, and we will be getting MCAS reports in September. So those are really the goals that we talked about. You approved them. Now let's talk a little bit about evidence. In order to make things easier for you, wasn't done for me, it was done for you. I put evidence into categories, separate, and then put them into the standards, which you then evaluate me on. Because I thought there were some things we needed to highlight, and there are some things that I think the community needs to hear. In my opinion, more than anything else, chronic absenteeism is what we have to start with. Because if students are not in school, teachers can't do their job. So chronic absenteeism is a nationwide concern, and during the 2021-22 school year, chronic absenteeism for FLRSD was a very concerning 23%. I'm going to say this again, that is not a knock on what happened previously. It was what happened because of COVID. Students not getting back to school, because our numbers prior to COVID were at 9%, 8%. And so things were in a very good place. I came in after COVID. Now, how do we begin to fix what's going on? A student is determined to be chronically absent when they are not in school for 18 or more times, which is 10% of the school year. I just want everybody using the same language. As a district, in 1 year, we put significant emphasis on this, and our rate dropped in year 1 from 23% to 15.5%. Significant change when schools are still struggling in the upper 20s. Our principals have done a fantastic job. Our teachers have done a fantastic job. We work to improve this to pre-pandemic numbers, by changing the process when parents and guardians are called from the 6th absence to the 3rd. Teachers are doing a great job. Principals are doing a great job. Each school is focused on providing supports centered around getting students back to school. When student attendance improves, it's easier to improve student outcomes. Pretty simple. We have great teachers, but if kids are not in class, students cannot be successful. So that's the heart of everything, and I'm really pleased, and you'll see it in the evidence provided. Number 2, safety and building improvements. From day one, and I'm going to repeat this because it has been a source of frustration for me that nothing happened in this district until November, and that's a lie. From day one, when I entered this building, the high school to begin with, I had a conversation with Kaylin Desert and Jim Cabusio and our 2 APs and Terry, and said the vestibules need to be changed because you could get, if you got into the first door, the second door was open. At that day, we then went to FES, AES, and I remember we traveled to each of the schools, and it was the same all the way across. That is not the fault of anybody, but it was from day one. We then began to work with Deb Petty, who was wonderful, Police Chief Abbott at the time, before he retired, to talk about how we can work on the vestibules. So this is what's happened since we arrived. We've secured the vestibule's second set of doors in all 5 schools beginning in September of 2022, finishing in March of 2023. The use of Raptor technology for all visitors is now a must for everyone. We secured $75,000 through Senator Michael Roderick's office to upgrade security on campus buildings. Due to the safety of all, I am not going to disclose all of the measures recently installed. I will provide them to the school committee in our next executive session, but please understand, the more we tell people, the more people have an opportunity to say, oh, okay, now I can figure out what to do. So I'm not hiding it from the community, but I hope everybody understands why we are not doing everything. I will say, though, that one of the security measures that has been installed this summer is that we have now instituted a single key system within the district. So we'll use the high school to begin. Previously, if I'm a math teacher, I have keys to the math department. That's wonderful, except if I'm bringing my class to the library, and God forbid there is an active shooter, and I need to get into a room, I can't get in, because my key only fits. That no longer happens. There is one master key for every single classroom that every single teacher will have, every paraprofessional will have, all the way across the board. That is a monumental shift for us and very important. We're very excited about that. That doesn't impact, and there's certainly areas within the building, nurse's office, for example, where there's medication, safe areas, student records areas, where that is not the same master key. But I think that we talk about safety of students and staff, that is a big one for us, and we're excited about that. We've received $13,000 in donations from a community member, 2 separate donations for safety measures at campus schools. As stated during public comment, this was in part to our proactive commitment to ensuring the safety of students and staff from day one. We thank them for their support. Ensured for 2022 that a second police officer would be stationed inside FES during voting. That had never happened before. We made sure that it happened. We, though, now, due to the work of Deb Petty, a second door is being put outside of the gymnasium at FES so that there is only an entrance and exit for voting, and that's the only time that door is really going to be used, or if there's an emergency, with a handicap ramp so that people can come in and then exit. Major change, so no one in town, we're not planning on having school during elections, but if it ever came to that, if there was a community election, for example, and we are open until 12, and voting starts at 11, we're still safe. Cheryl Stroll has been great with that too. The town of Freetown earmarked through Deb Petty funds to begin the installation of that. A handicap ramp is being installed. Through the work of Chief Rose, as I said, we've collaborated to begin the process of part-time SRO at FES for 24-25. We've continued Alice training through SRO Bartholomew and Detective Medeiros. The district collaborated with both Lakeville Police Department and Freetown Police Department to utilize FMLS in 22-23 and FES in 23-24 for active shooter training. We will continue this very solid relationship. During 23-24, we worked with Lakeville Fire Department to begin the development of an emergency weather plan and continue to work with Deputy Chief Garant. FES, through the support of again, Deb Petty and her office, will be replacing the entire fire alarm system. That's beginning immediately, right? Right, as soon as we get the company, but that is in place. So we thank the town of Freetown. We've improved the communication phone system at FES with network wiring. We continue to attend multiple professional development opportunities and webinars on school safety. We met with Kevin Ham, the LPD, the Lakeville Police Department, Lakeville Fire Department, and Town Manager regarding a one-stop grant opportunity for safety for the town of Lakeville. Fortunately, we did not get it. We did meet with a Freetown town official, Chief Rose, Chief Perkins, and a representative from Bosch Camera Systems to discuss gun detection cameras. What gun detection cameras are is, we know typical cameras that are outside. Gun detection cameras can automatically look inside someone's pockets to determine whether or not they're carrying a weapon outside. So it's not when it's in their hands, you can detect it earlier. They are very expensive, they are new to the state, but we at least had a presentation on it. So we're constantly looking at costs, and then we're talking about grants and all of that. Building improvements. Thank you to the town of Lakeville and all previous town officials, our former superintendent and director of finance, Greg Goodwin, and his team, and Principal Penault for their tireless work in securing the AES window and door project. That has been a monumental project. An open house for the community took place in March of 2024. We put that on as a way to say that the community, we talk about community engagement as part of the evaluation. That was a open house for the community. The district secured, after a great deal of discussion with Senator Rodericks, $100,000 for improvements to the AES playground. Made a big difference there. Again, I keep mentioning her name, but we appreciate it. Through the town of Freetown, in support of Town Manager Deb Petty, FES improved its drainage at the playground in the spring and is replacing the front walkway and the walkway by the kindergarten wing this summer. A $65,000 donation was made by a community member to help upgrade the wellness room for all students and athletes. That's in process now, as well as help purchase a new scoreboard on the main fields. The Booster Club also donated money to the scoreboard. We thank them. FES gym floor is being refinished. The 2023 technology plan was developed through the support of multiple stakeholders. You have a copy of it as part of your evidence. That is just the beginning of where we are with safety and building improvements. We're really excited about what we've done in 2 years. I'm not for, so that our poor directors over here do not need to fall asleep. I will go quickly with the other ones. We did engagement. We have worked to support special education families in CPAC. We have more work to do with CPAC and supporting CPAC, without question. But there was a shift in the fact that administration, Ashley, when she was here, Kelly, Danielle, Meredith, and myself have attended CPAC meetings. That was a shift from previous. I know school committee members have attended. Obviously, we received the Unified Champions School banner for our involvement in unified sports. That has been a big deal. Our unified sports focus was a big focus for me in getting the community to become a part of it, and it was wonderful. With the support of community members in our diversity coalition group, we have begun utilizing a culturally responsive calendar. We've increased awareness and understanding of needs of our EL, which are soon to be called MLL, which is multiple language learners community, including using translator services when needed. We meet bi-weekly with the two union presidents and have an absolutely fantastic relationship, which I think was shown through what you discussed, Will. If it's not solid with union presidents, it's not going to be solid when we go into negotiations. So for anything. I have included for you multiple articles that are sent to counselors, principals, special education regarding various topics. For example, I sent you 2 on autism in girls as an example. They are then distributed to staff. Superintendent roundtables are held at every school. Students meet with the building principal and superintendent to discuss what's going on in their building. It is not my time to do anything other than listen and take information down. Mr. Goodwin, Mrs. Fay, who's our food service director, were invited to discuss their roles and receive feedback. Some of the feedback, for example, from Andrea Fay, our food service director, is why can't we have a chocolate fountain for dessert at the high school? Why can't we have chocolate chip pancakes? Why do we have to have fruit every day? Why do we have to have certain potatoes? Fascinating conversation, but she really talked about what healthy food is all about. and what the government says we have to eat. So real good conversations. Greg as well got a lot out of them. We're going to bring Ryan in next year. I'm going to bring in Jack next year to talk about budget, very high level budget, and then also Terry to talk about curriculum, what kinds of things. So those have been really, really positive. Each school has to do projects that they decide, has nothing to do with what I decide. They decide to do projects. They're going to be coming next year. Again, things didn't happen because things didn't happen. The projects happened, my ability to present them didn't happen as I would have wished. Maybe in my opinion, and again, I may be a little biased, the most powerful program we developed in my 2 years here was the backpack program with the incredible support of Freetown Food Pantry and Mr. Craig Cabral. A conversation started at FES when we were talking about what does the district need and how things have changed since COVID. And a teacher, Mrs. Biggers, said, we need to do something about food insecurity. Now, I came from a community where food insecurity was a big deal, and we had backpack programs, pretty extensive backpack programs. So that conversation from superintendent meeting with the staff resulted in, let's do the backpack program. To date, close to 2,000 backpacks have been filled with food that have been distributed to students and families for meals on weekends. So you're really talking about the equivalent of about 6,000 meals, so that our students and families could have food over the weekend and then continue and be fed coming into school in the morning. We are looking to grow that to the summer because it's a concern over the summer for some of our families. And so we are going to continue that. That's a lot of work, and we've got to figure out, Craig and I are gonna, Mr. Cabral and I are gonna work on getting a grant so we can pay some people to do that, because I can't ask staff to just show up. But that's an exciting, major, big one. We've met regularly with Freetown and Lakeville Police and Fire to discuss safety and programming. We're going to be meeting again in 2 weeks. Town manager, both of them stated communication was better this year than the year before. It is not good enough, I will admit that, but it continues in an upward trend. I have for you academic success. I'm going to repeat this again. The State Accountability Index reached 60, which is the highest it has been in our district. It is a time, and I presented this on February 14th, when surrounding districts have not improved their accountability index. So as we're going up over the last couple of years, other districts are still feeling the pinch from COVID. And I'm very proud of that. And our teachers have done, Terry and our principals have done a remarkable job. The State Accountability Index takes into account data from grades 3 through 12, all data, English learner progress, chronic absenteeism, advanced high school coursework. It is not about resting our hat on it. We have substantially met progress towards our goals. We want to be higher than 60. We want to be in the 70s. 75 is when you are substantially meeting and you are a school of recognition. That is our goal. MCAT scores will not be released until the fall. Year one showed some positive gains as noted in the documents around ELA across the board, which you have. Our principals and teachers continue to do excellent work. AP qualifying scores of 3 or higher were the highest in the region. See the documentation. They collectively continue to climb, while more importantly, more students are accessing AP. It is easy to raise your scores if you have less kids. We're raising our scores and bringing more kids in. That's teachers. So when we talk about what's happening, I'm going to say it again, the sky is not falling in this district, and really good things are happening. Hiring and retaining of staff you have in front of you. We attended for the first time in district history, or as far back as we can go, Bridgewater State University Teacher Job Fair, where we were able to recruit candidates. Our state mandated mentor program has been outstanding. Terry, thank you for your work. The process for developing committees for administrative positions has been created, ensuring multiple stakeholder groups are included and that no position is ever handed to someone again. Not that they are not deserving, we just think it's important for staff to be able to be part of the process. Secretaries across all buildings have never been evaluated. I want you to hear that. When Renee said that to me and Jen Seberg said that to me, I was floored. Jen Seberg has been here 25 years. 25, Kelly? 26. She's never been evaluated. We cannot grow as a district if we are not constantly evaluating. That's part of why I'm going through this. It's about what else can we do. All secretaries in work with the union have ensured that evaluation is done yearly. We are now working on that for maintenance and custodial staffs who had not been previously evaluated. Greg, I'm not sure if you were evaluated previously. So again, our director of facilities, I want you to think about that, had not been evaluated. That's unfair to him. Same thing with technology. So we're very pleased with that, and I think that's how we hire and retain staff. Evaluation, I have given you an example of an evaluation. I am going to reiterate this again. Those are not public documents, and so I'm just going to say that. That evidence is not public. So when I find out who has it, we will deal with that as from a legal perspective. Primary school principals develop common walkthrough documents in order to ensure consistency and expectation for teachers. That had not been done. I give credit to Terry, to Bethany, to Mike Ward for really working on that so that when we walk into classrooms, we are seeing the same thing and looking for the same thing. That's important for teachers. They need to know what is being looked at. They were developed in part from DESI's model of what to look for in grades 1 and 2, etc., which I have given you in documentation. Evaluation is a continuous fluid experience for all principals and leaders. Evaluation should never be a gotcha. It should be an opportunity to discuss and showcase the wonderful things our staff is doing as well as areas of growth for each of us. If Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs can say we didn't do enough, we should have played better last year, we need to do more to win next year. Tom Brady used to say the same thing, Michael Jordan, we all need to look at evaluation positively. And that should be the purpose of it. I've included for you all of our district leadership team meetings, agendas and meetings, agendas and minutes. I'm going to reiterate, those are not public. That information is not public. There's very specific information to our leadership team that in no way should be sent out. And I'm just going to continue to reiterate that. A survey to the full leadership team on the leadership of the superintendent, if you think that we've never done that, it's incorrect, is conducted by the new superintendent induction program in April of each year. Results are returned at some time in the summer. I have included for you the 2022-23 survey results. It should be noted there's a self-assessment where I have to assess how I think I did and then compare it with how the entire district leadership team felt we did. So you'll get some information there. It has not been returned yet for 23-24, but as soon as it is, that will be given. Strategic plan, which we are responsible for doing, we have worked on it diligently. It is right now a working document, so what you have been sent is only a working document because the school committee, has to approve it. We are finalizing it. School councils have approved it, which has to be part of it. We have had multiple stakeholders be involved in it. The next piece will be for us to finalize it over summer and then present it to the school committee in probably September, late September. Student Opportunity Act, you approved already. We don't really need to talk much about that. That is in a nutshell the evidence that you have been provided. I'm going to say it again. I am very proud of the work that our teachers do, that our leaders do. In regard to my own evaluation, the budget, I will always own. I will own everything. The great stuff is done by everyone else. What doesn't work, I will own, but I will not sit here after a year of giving my life with my health and listen to town officials make statements that I need to get a second opinion because somehow Dana-Farber isn't qualified to give the opinion of chronic lymphocytic leukemia, or that I don't look sick enough, get some proof, or my FMLA needs to be publicly put out there. We've done our work, and I'm very proud of the fact that despite my illness, this district moved forward. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Any questions to the superintendent from the table?
I think we would be, through the chair, I think we were remiss as a committee just not to thank you for all of your hard work. I said this in a little bit earlier, but I do feel like this evaluation has become a little bit of an I gotcha process, and that's not what Freetown-Lakeville is about, not with any of our staff. So I appreciate you running through your goals, running through the evidence that you have provided us, and I know that the school committee is going to give an objective look here. And I'll say it again, you've never been someone that's run away from feedback, criticism. You've always shown, at least myself, and I think I can speak to the committee, your willingness to grow and continue to learn. So I think we'd be remiss if we just didn't say thank you for that presentation. I think it highlights a lot of the positive, which I think we need. So thank you as well.
I agree.
And you've done a great job.
Right. The plan for this committee moving forward is, following this meeting tonight, we will digest everything Alan shared with everyone earlier. We were given as a committee, all of this hard evidence. It is a significant amount. We will look at this all independently, compare it against the rubric for the superintendent, and we will be prepared at the next meeting to come in and, discuss this evaluation.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for the community,
Yes, sir.
and I apologize to the school committee, but this is the evidence that was provided, all of this. So we're not talking about a few pages. And I think it's important for our staff to understand. I actually like the process because staff has to provide evidence to us. And so I think the fact that it's public is a good thing so that staff sees, okay, the superintendent has to provide the same kind of evidence that we do as teachers. I think that's really positive. I will also say that, yes, I highlighted, we're all going to highlight positives. I talked about the budget. There are certainly areas where we have to grow. Lots of areas where we have to grow. As a district, process-wise, we have students who are not feeling incredibly comfortable within school. So there are lots of things we have to do. From buses and getting to primary school on time in the afternoon, schedules, negotiations, so we will get there. We've done a lot in 2 years.
Sympathize, I agree with that. Crystal, go ahead.
Do we have to fill out specific paperwork, or do we just write up our own summary of everything we go through?
Just write up your own summary.
Just write up your own summary?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure.
And typically, I'm not speaking out of turn, no, it's just because it's a general evaluation. Typically, each of you would take the 4 standards. I sent you the rubric. I know you probably have it, but I sent you
Right now.
a copy of the rubric, the administrator's superintendent rubric.
Yep.
It's got 4 standards on it.
Right,
What I sent you, each piece of documentation is based upon standards. And then what usually makes the most sense to make it concise is you go standard 1, comments, what you rate. Standard 2, what you rate. It's just cleaner, I think, but that's,
well, I didn't know if there was any like
No,
DESI
there's-
paperwork
no.
we had to fill
No.
out to
No.
make sure everything was on the up and up. Okay.
Did you get Steven's email? in which he kind of outlined all this for us?
I haven't really looked at all my emails.
Okay, so
To be honest with
Steve Sylvia sent us his purview of it. If you look over that, you'll have a better idea of how to fill it out and what you should put there.
Thank you.
Question back there?
I was just gonna say that Steve's probably sent it out, but there's like a template, but it's the
Yeah.
same as what
Yeah.
Alan was
Right.
just talking about, where it's like standard and then a text box and then a standard and then a text box.
Yeah.
So he needs to be evaluated on whether we believe he met his 2 goals, the goals that he just went over now, and then to the 4 standards, right? So as long as you have those ratings with a little summary or feedback or underneath each standard, we should be good. My understanding of the process is that will be compiled and the final report will be drafted by the Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee, presented to the committee to review, and then we can review it in open session.
Yes, thank you.
I just have one other question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Crystal,
We've
go
only
ahead.
been here for 3 months. So, to be fair, do we really go back and look at everything, or do we just comment on the 3 months? Because, I mean, I just want to be fair. So that's just a question I just had right now, of like, when I go back and I look at all of this, but then I'd speak for myself.
Okay.
But I've only been here for 3 months.
Sure.
So do you really want, I go back and do all of this, or do I just do what I've been doing for the last 3 months?
In my opinion, and I'll welcome feedback from anybody, I would give your rating based on the evidence that Alan has presented.
Okay.
You know, I'm thinking
As well
in the
as the
private.
rubric.
Right.
Yeah, if you compare the two, then, you know, it's not really about how long any of you have been here, how long any of us have been here. The evidence and the rubric are what we're comparing.
Right. I just.
Of course, you can have your own opinion based on
I
the
just
time
want to
that you
make
have
sure
been here.
everything is all said and done.
That's what I was gonna say, and he have his goals and what he accomplished or what he didn't accomplish, and all the evidence is there, so we just should go by that rather
Yes.
than make it like a timeline, the time that we have been here. The evidence is there, so we can just go back and,
Correct. You know, that's my opinion on it.
I agree.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to our next item in new business. I received about 2 weeks ago an open meeting law complaint. This came in an official form from the Attorney General's office. The date of the alleged violation was July 1st. And the violation is, I'll read you the language. The Freetown-Lakeville Regional School District violated the open meeting law as follows. Number 1, held an illegal executive session for the purpose of, in quotes, to discuss non-union employee evaluation, comma, superintendent's evaluation, end quotes. This public body knew or should have known that superintendent's evaluation is not allowed to be discussed in executive session. Per requirement of receiving this complaint, I need to present the formal complaint as given to me in open session to the full committee, to the community. An explanation to the complaint, which I will provide also to the Attorney General's office, is originally that meeting was scheduled and the agenda was written to have it as an executive session only. Prior to the meeting, the agenda was amended to have it in open session, which we had. Nonetheless, we still need to go through, the legal procedure and explain to everybody formally that the complaint was present and how we plan on addressing it. Any questions, anybody at the table on it? Okay. Thank you, Rafael.
So to be clear, it wasn't a violation, it was just a complaint.
Correct.
Which will be explained.
Yep, in my opinion.
Yep.
Can I ask a question? It was a subcommittee meeting? It wasn't a full committee meeting.
Nope, it was a school committee meeting agenda that was filed for an executive session only. My plan, or my thinking at the time, was to not conduct an evaluation in executive session, but just to discuss with the team members the plan, more the timeline of how we were going to conduct the executive session, which I didn't think at the time was something I needed to do in open session. After getting clarification from our legal department, we made the change and had it in open session.
Yeah, but, excuse me, on July 1st, the members that attend to that meeting was the superintendent
Evaluation. subcommittee.
evaluation committee, right?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
yes,
So
that's
I
correct. I
think
misspoke.
that's what she was asking, yeah.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so by law, I needed to respond in open meeting to this complaint publicly within 16 business days. And now, let me clarify, I don't want to speak again. Apologies, within 14 business days of when I received the complaint, which I believe I had until tomorrow to conduct. Now that we have addressed it in an open meeting, I will formally reply to the person within 14 business days. Any questions? Thank you. All right, moving on. Director's reports. Mr. Higgins.
Yep, thank you. So the director's report is primarily focused on the FY23 single audit, which we've discussed and has been discussed at many previous school committee meetings. We received the draft audit on July 19th, which included the financial statements analysis and areas of improvement. As part of that, we are then, we create a response to the identified needs, which then go into the audit as well. Those were completed, and we have received the completed audit, which we got yesterday, and you have received those audits. We'll get hard copies of them as well from the audit firm. The audit firm is able to attend a school committee meeting in the fall to present the findings and answer any specific questions you may have after you had an opportunity to read through it. Within that audit, there were 3 material weaknesses identified. The first of the material weaknesses was labeled FY23 closeout and overall monitoring of financial reporting. Within that, the recommendations include systems of internal controls to include internal environment improvement, risk assessment, communication, information sharing, and monitoring, as well as assessing staff competencies and cross-training to mitigate effects of turnover. So they recognize that that turnover was a mitigating factor as to why the FY23 audit had issues that they identified. The feedback, part of that feedback is to say, if you have done a fair amount of cross-training, you'll have the opportunity so that when there is any turnover, you're able to make the transition a little more smoother, and you're not losing as much intellectual capital you might have as you might have when someone moves on to a new job. That was material weakness number 1. Our response from that is to include much of what we've been putting in place already in this first month, which includes increased shareholder communication, it's not a very large department, it's not a very large central office, so it doesn't require us to create big conference calls and so forth. But I can tell you that it has been, at least the feedback I've been receiving from the members of the business office as well as from the central office, has been a breath of fresh air with the amount of communication that's going on right now. We are holding consistent meetings through, and I'll go through those on weakness number 2, but by running standing meetings for departments as well as through grants management, we're able to make sure that much of the issues that they've identified can be avoided. In addition to that, we're promoting more professional development for members of the business office, including myself, including the mentoring program through MASBO. As a first-year business official, I have that opportunity to have a mentor, which I think will be very useful. But quite honestly, the community of business officials in the state of Massachusetts are very collaborative, very friendly, very open. There is listservs where you can send out a question and you get responses very quickly from your colleagues. So I look forward to a mentor. It's much easier to pick up the phone and have somebody that has some history with you to answer those questions. But I will share with you that I'll be attending my first MASBO conference next week, where again I'll be able to increase the amount of professional collaboration that I'll have access to. Weakness number 2, the title was reporting and grants management, specifically reporting of grants management. The recommendation in that case is the posting of financial activity as intended, and then also timely posting of any adjustments that may be needed. And that was quite a bit of what took place in FY20. At the closing of 23 was the posting of that end-of-year financial activity in the appropriate places that didn't then need to be adjusted through journal entries to appropriately expense items out of the correct funds. The response, as I mentioned, is reconciliation of grants through biweekly and monthly meetings with appropriate shareholders, and then reviewing outstanding items more frequently. So when we're looking at those items that we've identified as expenses, we are waiting for those expenses to be completed through the PO process, identifying, keeping those on the agenda until we have completed the process and we know that they're done. Just to share some sort of some real world kind of examples. Our district accountant is very strong, but I don't think that she was always included in the conversations of what was taking place in terms of decisions relative to the expensing out of certain grants. So if I'm a district accountant and I get a PO and I'm not told that it's supposed to come out of a particular fund, then my reaction is to take it out of the general fund. That we've been able to mitigate that with including the district accountant in these conversations, in these meetings, so that we have multiple places where we're catching ourselves if that was to happen. And then finally, weakness number 3 is not at all surprising. It is the completion and the filing of the single audit. So, and obviously that would, we will be able to start the process with the audit firm for the FY24 audit in November. We'll be starting it in the fall, whereas this past year they didn't receive their first bits of information until May. Apologize. With regards to new operations within the business office and relative to new business, payroll operations oversight has been identified as a critical area so that we can ensure effective preparation for the upcoming contract negotiations, as I alluded to earlier. ESSER3 meetings have been bi-weekly. We have one tomorrow, which includes the grants management team as well as the affected department leads, technology and facilities, who are going to be utilizing some of those funds. Monthly athletics meetings with myself as well as, myself, the athletic director, and the district accountant. We've already identified some places where we can be more efficient. Jim Cabusio has identified things that would make his life a little easier, and we've been able to accommodate through adjusting the account lines in the athletic fund so that there's more specific language. For example, now that we have a supply line and we have an expense line, we have a uniform line, so that we can track the expenditures from one year to the next and know that we have purchased, for example, the uniforms on the correct rotation as Jimmy has established over the years. In addition to a line for transportation, I apologize for not mentioning that. Departmental meetings, we're reviewing our needs and beginning of long-term planning. And then other efficiencies that we've identified, as I mentioned, the athletics account lines, but also the Appendix C tracking process, integrating the principals from the buildings into the process, and more importantly, their secretaries who do an excellent job of monitoring that information when it comes from the schools over to us in terms of who has been identified for the different positions. But it's really important for us to track that, and it's a little bit more complicated than just sending a document that says with the people's names. When it has to go to multiple people in the business office, including payroll. So we want to make sure that there's one document. We're utilizing collaborative Google Sheets for that process, and then it makes it easier. There's only one place where you can find the information. And in the past, there had been some opportunities for errors as a result. Our meeting goals all around are information sharing, reviewing our prior year, planning for upcoming year, and identification of efficiency improvements. I will, at our next meeting, I will be asking the school committee to make a vote on the mileage rate for our employees who use their personal cars for their job. For example, we have our technology personnel. They drive from school to school and use their personal cars, and it's just a part of the school committee's process to vote what the mileage rate is, which is typically the rate identified by the IRS. But it would be so I'm sharing that with you so that you know that that's coming in the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Any questions for Mr. Higgins? Tim?
Great job, Jack.
Welcome, officially.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes. All right, and I'd like to welcome Ms. Kelly Steele for an update.
Right, so my report's based on ESY. That's what we've currently had going on here for the summer. Just kind of an overview of what extended school year is. It's students in special education that qualify for programming over the summer in order to prevent a significant amount of regression and something that can't be recouped over time. All of our students will see some regression coming back in September, having time off, but this is for students that have demonstrated over breaks in education that they wouldn't be able to recoup at the rate that other students would. So this year, students recommended through their IEP teams, we had 126. It's about 25% of our special ed population this year. And of who was recommended, 76 attended. So that the lower number is really more parents choosing or opting whether to have their child attend or not. There's many reasons for that. Some go away, some have them participate in other programs, camps in the summer. So that was our attendance. And then we transported within the district 37 of those students to and from programs that require transportation and or already had it embedded in their IEPs as a necessary resource for them. So we were fully staffed. We had a great staff. Sometimes that's a challenge to staff in the summer. We had 11 special ed teachers, 19 paraprofessionals. And then we had 2 speech and language pathologists that split their time across the programs, 1 occupational therapist and 1 physical therapist that supported the needs of the students. Those are contracted through South Coast Educational Collaborative. They do work with us through the school year, and then they contract in to provide the ESY services for our students. So all of the services were met, they were delivered. We were non compliance of any of our ESY services. And that is set to wrap up on August 8th. So we still have a week and a day left of our programming, and then we have the break until everybody comes back in September for students. And the rest of my report is just a breakdown by program, by grade. I won't go through all of that. And then just additionally, I have a report already prepared. I'm just going to be tweaking when we meet in August to talk about what we're looking at for September, what our staffing is, all the way down to numbers of evals, increases from last year, proposal for increase this year, and I'll do a new staff update report as well. We did hire someone to replace me in my position, She has been at the leadership retreat. Her name is Donna Hillary. She comes with a plethora of experience in special education administration, both at the collaborative level and the district level. I think she's going to hit the ground running, which is excellent for our schools. And then we're very lucky to maintain the 2 administrators that we've already had. And we're talking about just moving forward as a team and helping the administrators in place grow professionally and have more professional opportunities, maybe have an out-of-district case that they can get involved in so that they can kind of grow their skill set as well, so we can continue to just focus on growth here in the district and in the department. So that's kind of our summer piece, and then I'll have a really big piece when we come back in August.
We did find a school psych who will be at the high school, who can run team chair meetings.
Yep, so we have a school psych just at the high school, but under that umbrella, she will be able to chair meetings, especially reevaluation meetings, things like that. When I propose and set up my numbers for August, looking into the new year, you'll see our secondary numbers are really high. That is going to be a huge help for us at the secondary level. And she also comes with a lot of experience. And then we also replaced our K-5 psych who had left the district with someone who's also has good experience and is a really positive addition. So I'm very excited for the team we have coming on board for September.
You will note, if you check School Spring, that we have an opening for a speech and language pathologist. The previous speech and language pathologist left to become a team chair, and growth is always a good thing. So, you know, there's, I kind of laugh sometimes that people say, well, people are leaving. If people are leaving because they have a growth opportunity, that's a good thing. It means we've done our job and there just wasn't an opportunity here. So that's why there's that opening, just so you know, in case you get any questions. Not that you will, John. Kelly, welcome. Welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Can I ask, were there any issues staffing ESY or maintaining staff for ESY?
And honestly, even on top of not having staffing issues, we had qualified licensed special educators on our sub list that could sub when we had people out. We didn't miss a beat in ESY, and I'm not taking any credit for that because I came in July, but Jen Seberg did an amazing job with the organization piece of that, and Ashley Boulay did a great job hiring to get us to where we needed to be for ESY. So it was, I couldn't have been more successful in my opinion for ESY.
That's great. Fantastic.
And speaking of summer programs, I have to give, I know Terry's going to talk about Jumpstart. Her and her team have done a great job, but I want to give a shout out to Lisa Pacheco.
Yeah.
And the work that she does at Kids Cafe in the summer.
All year. but really in the
All year,
summer.
but right now we're talking summer. And,
Yeah.
and, you know, I don't think she gets enough credit. Her and her staff just do an absolutely remarkable job. And Lisa, thank you from all of us.
Yes, I agree.
She's very good at updating us when something happens. You know, this week was the pool, but like last week it was Pokemon cards and, you know, whatever else is going on. And I think that's fantastic.
And I think the bigger weakness are the little ones, because when I pick up my son every afternoon, he say, "Ma, I love this camp.
Good.
This is awesome." And I am like, "Oh, okay."
Good.
So,
Love it. Great. Any additional questions for Kelly?
The LTS Inclusion Online High School Teacher. Is that replacing someone? Is that a new position?
To cover a leave.
Just to cover a
Yep.
leave? Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Steele, thank you.
My report is filled with just a lot of updates. There's a lot of activity that happens in my area over the summer. And I did lead off with Jumpstart because it is one of the ways I joyfully start my day for 3 weeks. We had 75 students this year, which is our highest number yet. This program has been ESSER 3 funded, so I'm looking for ways to maintain and continue the program because we just get really positive feedback from the kids and the families and the staff as that participate. We had 12 staff and 3 substitute staff that covered everything really nicely. Tomorrow is the last day for our students, and they do all hands-on applied learning activities And having it all in one building, having Kids Cafe and our program and ESY all in one building, I know that's a huge headache for Greg and his team, and they do a phenomenal job getting the building ready, and then they have to kind of re-get it ready because it's not quite in the same state of array as when we get there, but we try to leave it. But it's really nice because our kids in Jumpstart then head over to Kids Cafe, and Lisa and I've really tried to fine-tune that process of helping families because transportation is the biggest issue to come just for the morning. Jumpstart is just in the morning. So it is a wonderful way to spend the mornings, and I come back to central office bouncing and smiling as I've talked and kind of played with the kids in their programs there. So that's going wonderfully, and I'll have some pictures to the next school committee meeting just to run on the program before the meeting. As Alan mentioned, MCAS scores are coming out, the final scores, but the raw data is out, and as a leadership team, we are looking at it. I've actually had several meetings with building principals already over the raw data and what's happening, what we're seeing. And so I can't really go into great detail, but there are, as usual, both positives and areas of growth for our district. And I'm looking forward to sharing that once the final data comes out. Right now, it's just kind of in what's considered raw score form, and they haven't done any adjustments. So they have these, like, how many problems the kids got right, and then they convert it to this big number, and they give the proficiency ratings and the needs improvements. I've done some pre-calculations and predictions, and we'll see how close I get once those final scores come out. Curriculum work is happening. I was thrilled when I posted for curriculum work this summer. I had no problem at all. In fact, I had more people apply than I had posted for, and that's always a wonderful place to be. So Ready Classroom has updated. We have the updated math for iReady Math, and the math team is working on updating the scope and sequences to include alignment to ST Math, our supplementary math program. So they are diving in and really creating documents that are usable to all teachers. They're called interactive scope and sequences because they have links in them that help teachers access like assessments and lesson plans and so forth. Investigating history is a supplement for history resources that our 6th and 7th grade teachers are looking at as part of the supplemental units for the middle school. And 3 of the 4 teachers were able to participate this summer in looking at some units together. We have a sight word team that is meeting next week to make sure that we have common sight word lists. There's many different areas that sight words can come from, so we want to ensure that each of our grade levels are working from the same lists, and that's not happening currently. So, and then the comprehensive physical fitness, health, and wellness frameworks are new. And so, like I explained earlier, when they were adopted, this will be a 3-year process, and a team of 6 of our health teachers are looking at those frameworks, and the work that we're doing this summer is building that implementation timeline, what it looks like, what's going to be accomplished at each hurdle, I guess. But they're looking at crosswalk documents, which identify the changes from the 1999 frameworks to the current frameworks, and then identifying areas that we have already embedded the units and where we have to make adjustments in our current units. So that's the great work that's happening. That's the tedious work that happens during the summer on curriculum. Initial notifications are being sent out to new families for our EL learner, for our multi-language learners, our ELL program. So we had a lot of notifications going out in kindergarten. That happens typically. Notification goes out. A student is then assessed in the fall as to whether they require English language learning services. A lot of people have a second language spoken in the home. However, English is still the primary language. We have to assess whether that student needs or requires any additional support. I didn't finish that sentence, I'm sorry. Our new English learner teacher is starting. Carolyn has emailed me several times to see when she can come in, and she's going to be coming in and working with Marina and I to get familiar with things. She's very excited, and I am too. She has experience, again, kind of like Kelly was talking. We have someone that's coming in and going to be like hit the ground running, and Marina and she really hit it off. So it's a nice pairing for our campus program, the 3 schools here. She's an Apponequet graduate. Yes, actually, when we were interviewing her, I walked back out and Heather Ashley was, she's like, hey, and they like started talking and striking up a conversation. It was really.
We actually hired 4 Apponequet graduates this summer.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Good to hear.
And then, as always, I'm constantly looking for grant opportunities and funding opportunities. So currently, the Investigating History Grant was a $4,000 award for professional development. So local civics will be coming in, working with those teachers to look at that supplemental resource for our history program at the middle school. And then the high school, Kaylin and Jeff and Katie and I are looking at a career innovation grant exploration. We submitted our interest for the grant application and are working on the second round paperwork. And then there is a high-quality math instruction grant that, again, the state is doing multiple levels now when they put out for grants. So again, I've filled out the we're interested form. I'm waiting for that next round of, okay, fill out this paperwork, fill out this grant. We're filing for our second year of Safe and Supportive Schools. Each building had a team of very dedicated people, including community members and students, looking at results from the Safe and Supportive Schools feedback forms and areas that they would like to improve in their own buildings. So that's being filed. It's due by September 1st. We did get awarded the ST Math grant for Grays, so now we'll have ST Math in AES, FES, and Grays. And then the workbook, title workbooks just opened, so that is due September 9th, but Jen also has her workbooks open, Seaberg, and so we're hoping to file those before the start of the school year because the funding can't start until you file for your workbook. So if I didn't file until 9/9, then we couldn't use any funds for prior to 9/9. So ideally, we fund it before that first day of staff so that we could use it for interventionists or salaries or whatever. And then this is the first year, and I did mention at one of our other meetings, our Title III consortium is in, we've met 3 times this summer. I'm really excited to be working with Westport and Swansea. It is providing us a small amount, but it's money that we couldn't access before because we didn't hit a number for the state. So now we're getting about $5,000 for professional development for our English language teachers, our ESL teachers. We have a gift that has been submitted by Lakeville Arts Council, so I want to take a moment to thank them for.
They've offered to give us a gift because
Yep.
it hasn't been voted on by you.
Right.
So they've offered.
I'm just warning you, this is coming.
We will vote at
They
the
brought
next
in a
meeting.
letter to me.
We will vote at the next meeting.
And it has to do with displaying student artwork in the high school building. So they're very excited to partner with us on that. The Title I data report was filed, and then there is a new Title IV data report that will be filed in the fall, just to give you an update on that. Homeschooling students, there was no change as of yet, but I will have new numbers at the next meeting because people are in the process of filing their new education plans, as well as providing that proficiency, progress towards proficiency. So any families out there that are listening or watching, please note that the second request for your information will be going out. So if you don't want to get that letter from me that's stamped with second request, please send it in, email it to me, however you want to get it to me, so that I can take care of your files. The 24-25 professional development is almost in its final stage. Leadership and I talked about some of the gaps that we have and need to fill, but that'll be off and running. Choice is still the focus, as well as meeting licensure needs for people's PDPs. And then, as always, and I'll be sending the save the date, our new teachers are starting and they have 2 days with us, and so I always welcome school committee members on that first day. I usually get people that don't have to work on a Monday, so Bob and Jean usually are my 2 that show up. But anyone is welcome, and I'll send that save the date to introduce you, because I love introducing you. But we're going to have them here too, so that's also helpful, but I love having you join us for that. And then I just listed like ongoing initiatives in the district.
Good job, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
Terry, thank you.
So I just want to echo about Jumpstart. I do have a Jumpstart student at home, and every day he has a smile on his face. And it's very, like you said, it's, as a parent, very convenient to have it there and have everything walked right over, because that was my big concern after I got the invitation to participate was transportation, but it's so nice to have that.
It is fun. And it was fun seeing you in the morning too. I just,
Terry, you answered my question. I believe you did on staffing for these programs. It seems like you had no issue staffing as well.
yeah, I had no issues staffing, and 3 subs that came in, even at the drop of a hat when someone had an emergency come up on a Monday morning and they're like, oh, I'll go do it. And so it's just fun. It's
I mean,
just a
that
fun
even
time to be
speaks
with
to a
kids.
higher level. It's one thing to have some committed work, but just to be on call. I also appreciate you speaking to grants that we didn't get. Because there's still an equal amount of work put in by our staff, towards these, and you don't get them all. So I thank you for that. Any other questions for Terry at the table? Thank you.
Thank you.
Subcommittee updates.
They're over there, not in summer, I think.
No, I already gave
Yeah,
the,
health is
Okay.
done.
Policy, we haven't met this summer.
Health is done. Evaluation we're doing.
Yeah.
I do want to add one thing, just for clarification for the community. When Jack talked about reductions, superintendent's salary was my choice. I want to reiterate that. That was not a school committee, we're taking money away from you. I made the decision that the district could use some more funds. I will give up a little. My father's looking at me from up above saying you're a moron, but that's besides the point. I just wanted to clarify that because I understand how some people create stories when they're not there, so.
Correct, we thank you for that. I'd like to personally also thank everyone. People at the table, people in the audience, LakeCAM. These July meetings are not typical, and I appreciate everybody's participation, not only to be here, but all the work they put in to get to this point. I thank you for that. Is there any other business that may come before the committee? If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Thank you, everyone.